So, hi there. My name is Greg Frankson. I'm the founder and CEO of Voice Share Inc. And our organization has a group which is called Shared Voices, which you can join through Facebook on facebook.com/group/shared voices, where we bring people together to talk about inclusion, leadership, and effective communication. And so, as part of what we do on Shared Voices by VoiceShare, we have a series of events. And this event right now, this is the newest of the events that we've created. It's called VoiceShare Exclusive. And so we just have a few people who have access to join us for conversations with powerful leaders who will share their expertise, their experiences, their knowledge, and all of the things that they think that would be relevant to the topic at hand. And they share these because they are wonderful and fantastic human beings, but also because they enjoy the kind of format that we're going to have. It's going to be much more conversational and just having folks share a little bit about who they are, what they're about, and about the topic at hand. And the topic today is about communicating a positive mindset. And so I'm very happy and pleased to have Mario Francella with me today. He's an old friend and a wonderful leader in the financial services industry. He's also a well-known public speaker and an all-round motivator with a powerful, incredible story. And so I'm just going to turn it over to Mario to get him to share a little bit more about himself and about the topic at hand. So I'm going to give him a few minutes just to set the scene, and then we'll continue the conversation from there. So Mario, man, it's great to have you.
Amazing, buddy. Thank you. And this is such an honor that you chose me to be on this event with you. This is so cool. I always love working with you, and I've learned so much from you over the years. Just when it comes to communication and the voice that you have has given me such a like an inspiration to share mine as often as possible. I'm not as smooth as you, but I'm getting there. I'm working on it. But yeah, my name's Mario. I'm the founder and CEO of Win Financial. That's WYNN Financial. We work across North America, just helping Canadians raise their awareness when it comes to money. It's a huge problem in our world. And when I look at the topic that we're going to be breaking down and talking about today, it's if you would have told me 20 years ago, you're going to be talking on communication and sharing your voice, I would have thought you were crazy because that's not how I grew up. I don't have a nice college or university background. I don't have a business background. No one in my family has ever done anything or been successful in anything. I came up the hard way. I learned things the hardest way possible, truthfully. And to be in the position that I'm in now, to be able to share my story across stages when we could travel, but now it's over Zoom, but it's still all right. When I could share my story like that, it's just it's kind of amazing to look at. And if we can inspire the next generation of people to share their story and express themselves through proper communication, and I just think that the world would be a better place if more people could share their stories and be more authentic with themselves.
Yeah, that's really powerful. So what I guess where we can start the conversation, Mario, is just around that last bit that you just said right there about authenticity. Like, what does authenticity mean to you, and how does that come through in the way that you talk to people and communicate with them about things that are important to you?
This was a tough one for me. So I grew up, I'm not going to sit here and say I grew up with no money and poor. No, we were all right, but I had a lot of things against me growing up. I didn't have much of an education. I didn't, my parents didn't really have a ton of money, so I couldn't do a lot of the things that my friends were doing. And so to be honest, being authentic was not something I would do. I had times in my life where I was homeless and I was going down the wrong track with the wrong people in my life. And so you meet a girl or you meet someone in your life, you don't want to be honest because you think they're going to think you're a bum. So you lie. You live outside of that authenticity. And what I notice when you're not authentic, you don't speak with power. You speak with weakness because your body is rejecting the message you're saying. you're not in power. You're trying to impress people that, aren't seeing the real you. So it's almost like you're always wearing this mask. So I think when you're authentic is when you can stop worrying what everyone thinks about every word that comes out of your mouth. But as long as you're speaking your truth, you're speaking, within your power and who you are. I don't think authenticity has one direction. I just think it's just a higher form of honesty and self-awareness. That's what authenticity means to me, in the shortest version possible of that word.
A higher form of honesty.
Yeah.
That's what that's what really sticks out for me because I think what people sometimes forget when, when they're trying to communicate with other people, when they're trying to connect with other people, it's that, human beings are wired for, for four to look for four basic things in any communication in which they're engaged. So these are, Grice's maxims. So the first thing that they're looking for is truth. So when somebody's truth sense goes off, it'll tingle. They can hear it. They can tell when they're, when somebody's trying to BS them. They can feel that in their bones. They know how to understand that. Um, and they're looking for that honesty. People are also they're wired to look for some kind of information. They're looking for something that's new and novel or interesting or what have you. That it's either something they've never heard before, something they didn't know about, or it's something that they knew about, but there's some kind of new twist on it
Yep.
that they should be paying attention to. So people are looking for that, right? So looking for truth, they're looking for information. They're looking for relevance. So, I mean, I know that part of what you've done in the past is that, you've worked in kitchens. So if you had come to me with this amazing recipe for something that you thought was absolutely delicious, but the conversation that we were having was about like, what are the best kind of winter tires to get for my car? If you suddenly started talking to me about this recipe, well, it's not really relevant to what we're trying to communicate about. So I think that was really weird. So, we're also looking for the relevance. Like, what are you talking about? And is it on point in the context of what we're talking about? And then the final thing that people are looking for is they're looking for the manner in which the communication is being made. Is it clear?
That's huge.
So when you wrap it up, Grice's maxims are all about, truth, information, relevance, and clarity. Is what is being communicated to me, does it ring true? Right? Is it something that I need to know or should have known, or is something I really wish I'd known before? You know, does this have any freaking relevance to my life, and are you expressing it clearly? If we're not hitting all four of those in our communication, then something gets lost. People are able to tune out much more easily and not stay in that moment.
So true.
So to me, when you say a higher form of honesty, that's the truth sense part at the beginning. But I think it also has something to do with clarity, because clarity is not just about what you're physically saying and, if you're enunciating your words. And it's not also just about, how you put your sentence together. Is it got a subject and a predicate, and does it make sense, and blah, 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 all the
I don't do that.
grammatical,
Yeah.
right? The syntax crap. It's not about that. It's about, are you communicating that honesty clearly?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, do I feel bonded or interested or engaged in what you're saying because you're expressing that to me honestly? Do you know what I'm saying?
No, dude, I love first of all, just so you know, I have low attention span. So if we are talking about tires, it would probably lead into a recipe 3 seconds later. So that's just me. But what you're saying is so powerful. And I just had this conversation with one of my agents this week, and they are probably one of the kindest people on the planet, but they have very low communication self-awareness. And what I mean by that, it's not like they're not intelligent, they're wildly intelligent. But because they don't work on those key factors when developing those communication skills, when you're talking to people that are, reporting to you, when you lack that clarity, confusion destroys. When you have confusion, it's hard to build trust, Because when you're speaking in a way that you don't sound confident in what you're saying, or it's taking too long to get to the subject matter or to to what that person's looking for, they're going to feel like, maybe this person doesn't know a lot about this topic, and they start to drift away or stop leaning on you for that guidance. And I always use this example, you're not born a great communicator. It's something you do develop with time. It's something that you have to have enough self-awareness to realize these are areas I want to improve on. And just like any muscle, it can be built on. It's not like I can look at Greg and say, man, this guy's a spoken word poet. He knows all these words. He broke down this sentence so clearly. I can never do that. No, you just may not be able to do that today. But if you work at that, if you learn about that, if you do the right research, you can absolutely get there. And so what I said to this person, being clear with your message is important, because you can deliver the same type of message, but use the wrong choice of words, use the wrong choice of this, and you can cause nothing but confusion, or you can cause fear when you're trying to build confidence. And I always use this example. If I saw you today, Greg, and I said to you, man, Greg, have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day. That's a compliment. It's clear, it's concise. You know what I'm looking for. But if I were to say to you, Greg, enjoy your next 24 hours. You're threatened now. Like, what's this? Like, but it's the exact same message. It's the exact same thing. One is just not clear. What do you mean by next 24 hours? Right? So I'm always teaching these guys, it's better to just take it easy, go slow, and not rush through things, because language matters. It really does in our world today. If you want to be successful, language matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially in the age of COVID, which I think has really shifted the way folks have to conceive of the power of communication, because now, you can't just like roll up to somebody's house and be like, okay, I want to connect with you to have a conversation about this, that, or the other thing, right? You can't do that anymore.
No.
Now, we're in a situation where, if you want to communicate with somebody, you got to do it by phone. Like, people actually have to like pick up a phone and have a conversation with somebody, or
Yeah.
they've got to be able to shoot these messages, and they can't fall back on some of what was considered to be quote unquote normal in the pre-pandemic period. So from your perspective, Mario, how has the pandemic affected the way that you work, the way that you communicate with your people, and especially because you're a leader of a team? How has that impacted the way that you can create that connectedness,
Yeah.
that meaning making that communication is supposed to be about?
So this was a difficult transition for me. So I come from a very old school way of doing business. I studied human behavior. I studied body language. I studied a lot of things on psychology. So when I'm face to face with a client, I can get a great result out of that. I know what they're feeling. I can feel their energy, the body language. I notice a lot of things. When you're forced to go on Zoom, you don't always have that luxury. People don't have the same type of body language or facial micro expressions and things like that on Zoom. Sometimes their camera's not even on. And so, what's been really a strength for me now, I've had to redevelop that. And so, I'm starting to work with my team to understand that nowadays, to be a really good communicator, you have to really enhance your listening skills, because it's not so much about following that person's body language. You can tell when somebody's visibly uncomfortable. You can tell when you're on a tough topic and you understand not to keep pushing. Now you got to really listen. Now you got to be in a place to see, what is this person really saying? And it's forcing us now to be a little bit more present, less distracted with our clients. It's forcing us to ask more questions. It's forcing us to learn more. Whereas before, wasn't really as important as it is now. They were kind of going in there and they see, oh, this guy looks happy, so I'm good. Nowadays, my millennials on my team, my God, the young guys picking up a phone, unheard of. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't even know how to properly have a conversation. So what's actually funny is I do cold calling with them, where I'm calling them randomly throughout the day and I'm asking them questions and I'm getting them used to picking up the phone and answering it by doing it that way, because it's like teaching them a new skill. They never had to rely on that skill before in their life.
Right.
And so listening has been a really good thing. But even though we may not have the same in-face connection, we're trying to do a little bit more to relate to our clients. We're listening to what they want. And if it's, sending them a specific thing or a little text message, I have a guy that's a car lover. He can't afford the cars that he loves, but he loves them. So anytime I'm out and I see a nice car, I take a picture of it, I send it to him and say, man, just don't forget what we're working towards. You know what I mean?
Right.
So little things like that. I'm trying to think outside the box now to reconnect and build that engagement because I can't have that camaraderie in person as like how I used to. I can't take them out for a drink or dinner like we used to. So now we're trying to find more creative ways to connect with our community and our networks.
That's really powerful, Mario. Because of course, obviously, for full disclosure for the people who are here, Mario is a fabulous leader, and I know it uh, firsthand because I have been led by Mario and I have worked with him, and so I've seen the way that Mario has worked in the past in that kind of face to face, you know, pre-pandemic world that we did have at one point, and now to see that shift and to think to people is like we can't just go out for we can't just go out and have a drink and just that's it, and just
There
kind
been a
of
lot. Now we can't.
yeah, we can't even do that. So I mean, so yeah, taking that picture, sending it to your team and having them, connect that way, that sounds really powerful. But now when you actually gather your team together, I'm assuming you do it mostly through Zoom. Like, so
Yep.
what do you say to your team now in team meetings to keep them motivated, to keep them in a positive mindset?
So as you know, like when we worked together, the culture was like everything. It just was
Mhm.
lively in the room, and that's really hard to duplicate on Zoom. It really is. I mean, don't get me wrong. We do our trainings. We bring in a DJ. They get the kind of the crowd kind of going a little bit in the beginning. We start with some music. What I'm noticing is in person, when you're delivering a talk in person, you almost feel like you're in more control. You can control the crowd. You see their faces. You can lock eyes with one person that's really engaged, and you just you know how to work a crowd when you're in person. But on Zoom, that's not always the case. Some people have their cameras on. Some people aren't making direct eye contact with you. So you're almost going in it now with almost like a blind faith, like I hope this message is delivering. And so what I notice when I'm on Zoom, I have to be higher energy than I would be if I was in person. It's not so much about my cadence and having the voice control. Now I'm noticing high energy is what's keeping them engaged. And so the
Right.
message that we're delivering is still a powerful one because I let them really I'm more vulnerable now online than I even was in person. And the reason is you need to reach higher levels of connection online when you lack that eye contact and that body language and that you can feel that presence with somebody when you're in front of them. You have to now rely on your words a lot more powerfully, and because that's what they're hearing. They're not necessarily seeing your face the way they could, or the way your body language is engaged, or walking across the stage. I'm really pouring in a lot of love into my words. I'm also having a lot of one-on-ones with my team, really getting to know them on a deeper level, really connecting with them on that emotional level, and it's building that strong connection and that trust. I have people on my team right now that I'm personally managing that I think are some of my closest friends. I still never met them in person.
Hmm.
And so I'm noticing that it's working, but the vulnerability and the energy just is a little bit more higher, a little bit more control, a little bit more deeper. And that's what's bringing that connection in. I can't come into this and just have like a corporate meeting on Zoom. People are going to zone out. They're done. They're just not feeling the energy from you.
Right. And so I understand that and I see that as being a thing, but what I would ask you is, I mean, that just sounds like it's just so much of a higher level of energy expenditure.
Yeah.
So how do you encourage folks to manage their energy through these kinds of scenarios and in these environments?
Oh, buddy, I wish I knew. And it's tough. That's a tough one. And so time management and priority management has become a big part of that. Teaching people to, conserve their energy before meetings. because you got to go into a high meeting. Nowadays, to get somebody to purchase a product when you're dealing with them on Zoom, you can't, it's not the same joking around. You got to be high energy. You have to have great visuals behind you, whether it be a really, really good PowerPoint or something, because they visibly have to stay engaged. And so, what I've taught my guys is we've shortened all of our presentations to be more impactful. So they're less time on Zoom. They're not doing an hour to 2 hour presentation like you would at somebody's home or at the office, where you can have that small talk. They're not going anywhere. They're in front of you. They have no, there's no, like, they can't be not engaged. They're right there. On Zoom, it's different. And so we're cutting down the time that we're spending on Zoom. When Zoom's done, we're practicing things like just being mindful, some meditation, some relaxation. Don't book your meetings back to back to back to back. You're going to burn out. You know, your bigger meetings, we tell them book them in the morning when you're the highest energy, and in the evening, book things that are a little bit, you can be a little bit more calm, a little bit quicker, so you're not burnt out by the end of the day. It's actually a lot more strategic, and there's actually a lot more thought that has to go into it now. Even though we're in the day where we can sit with more clients in a day because we have access to doing it online, doesn't mean we're any less tired. Just because we're not driving from client to client doesn't mean we're not burning out. And you have to watch that burnout, because it'll creep up on you and you won't be expecting it.
Yeah, it's just yeah, I can 100% see that, and I feel that even in the work that I do, it's one of those things where you're working with clients, you're doing the prep to be able to present, and you're working with other people. So I have other collaborators that I get on these Zoom calls with, and we're building programs, and we've got screen shares going on, and all of that kind of stuff, right? Like it's a different type of an experience. I mean, on the one hand, you don't have to travel anywhere.
Yeah,
So there's a lot less wear and tear on you physically from that perspective. You don't have to get into freezing cold cars and and sweep snow off your roof and
yeah,
and face icy roads and all of that kind of stuff, driving all across the urban area to get to this meeting and that meeting. And you can have more meetings theoretically because you don't have to travel, and of course there's all of the cost savings on on the wear and tear on your vehicle and gas and all of that kind of stuff. But as you say, but then there's that flip side, which means that you're spending much more time online, so you're staring at a computer screen, and the negatives that come along with that sometimes,
yeah.
the possibility of of Zoom burnout, which I think a lot of folks are feeling now that we're coming on to 2 years into this pandemic. I think people are done with Zoom, with Teams, with
Oh,
WebEx, with like all of them, like all of these different platforms, like Google Meet. Like people are just like, I'm over it. You know?
it's absolutely true. And so that's why it's almost more entertainment now. You
Yes.
know, I noticed when we would do trainings when we used to work together, you can touch on a topic, or you can even repeat the same topic over and over to get that lesson across. And people still like to be in the room because there was just a vibe and energy. Doesn't matter if the message is the same, you were picking it up, you were learning. What I'm noticing on Zoom is we can't do that. We're having to be creative and be different almost on every single meeting because it's so easy not to show up anymore. It's so easy to disengage. It's almost like we're entertainers now and not trainers. And that's actually a big problem in our industry, and something that we're really trying to solve, because you're coming to the office, whatever the message is, you're already there. You're going to listen to it. Let's do this. You're going to tell me the same thing. Awesome. That means I really have to learn that. Nowadays, somebody's at home, they're in their comfy pants, like, oh my God, Mario's talking about this again. Camera off, TV on. It's so easy to disconnect. So it's actually become harder in that sense. So we've gotten really good at blurring that line between entertainment and training, and making sure we're still providing value, but with a really good energy, message, and visual behind it in order to keep people engaged. So as a trainer, it has gotten harder. It really has. People think it's easier. Oh, you just got to put together a PowerPoint. It's too easy to disengage. You want to get results, it's not enough. So it actually, that part has been more difficult, which is why communication skills really come in, because you have to learn how to adapt. You have to learn how to grow in that sense. If you're doing the same thing you've always tried to do in real life or in person, I mean, you're going to fail. And I've watched a lot of people fail because of that.
Right. there are some basic things that you can't do in an online environment that you could do in a room. For instance, you can't run a day-long session.
Oh my God.
That's not a thing. That's not a thing with Zoom. We've got kind of a rule of thumb that I work with uh, on my sessions, which is that we never book for longer than a 3.5 hour session,
Yeah.
and you always take at least a 15-minute break after each hour. So that's how it would be broken out. If I was going to do like a day session, it'd be like 1 hour of content, the 15-minute break,
Mhm.
then a second hour of content with another 15-minute break, and then the final hour of content and go home.
Yeah.
Like you just people need that opportunity to just kind of look away. I've also learned through my work about this wonderful thing that I would share to people who are watching this. It's
Yeah.
called the 20-20-20 exercise. And what
Okay.
that is that when you're working online, that you work for 20 minutes and then you take a 20-second break and you take a moment to look 20 feet away for those 20
Oh,
seconds,
that's pretty smart.
right? Just to make sure that your eyes don't go all buggy and squirrely, that you don't get a headache and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, every 20 minutes you stop for 20 seconds and look 20 at least 20 feet away
Hmm.
and just focus on that spot for 20 seconds. It's amazing, and it really just helps people stay in balance. Because I mean, bright screens and whatever, it's affecting your circadian rhythms,
Yep.
all of these monitors and all this kind of stuff. And that it impacts on your ability to receive the message that's being conveyed to you,
Yeah.
right? Like folks like yourself and myself, we can get on, we can talk to people, but if people are too zapped or too out of it and they're too frazzled by being in front of the computer screen every day, all day, for weeks on end, they're never going to be able to receive what you're saying.
No, you're right. This has been another challenge as well. Like, sometimes we have regulator come in, they have to talk to us. Being in our industry, it's not always easy. And they're spending 2 hours and it's dry. But the problem is, this is information that we really need to know. And
Right.
I'm watching people's eyes glaze over because it's so hard to stare at something and you're not it's because you're not involved, you're not part of it. When you're training and you see people that are kind of distracted, you can look at them, you can walk next to them, they're going to be like they're going to be more present. It's so hard to do that nowadays, and we're losing people. And the other challenge is it's really hard for up and comers right now, which is why you got to really get yourself out there and really raise your level of communication and your storytelling ability. Because when we were at the office and there was a good vibe there, when we brought someone up that was brand new, not a great speaker, there was an energy, a support there. Like they would get through their presentation and they weren't great, but everyone was clapping. There was an energy, they felt good. Now, when you tell somebody to get up there that's brand new, that doesn't have that, you tell them to do that, everyone's on mute. It's dead silent. Every
Mhm.
little mistake they're making is like highlighted and enunciated, and it's so much more difficult now. When they're done, it's just like a dead silence and they just go quietly back to the crowd, and it's
Yeah.
so much harder. People don't have the patience because the level of like talent is getting higher and higher online, that when somebody's below that bar, it's like you have no patience for it anymore. It's like a commercial when you're watching TV, like, I can't watch this, next. And that's what's making it really difficult, because a lot of
Yeah.
new people coming up, it's a struggle. They have to really work on their craft now.
Right. And it's sort of, it reminds me of this thing that I call the tyranny of the black rectangles, right?
Tell me
Because
all
you'll
about
go
it.
in, right? You go into this Zoom meeting and you're like, I would really like for everybody to just, turn on their cameras so that we can at least get some sense of community and connection and what have you. But when you're looking at your monitor and you've got it on the gallery view and there's 25 people present, but there's only 4 cameras on, and it's just the tyranny of these black rectangles with people's names in the middle. So you know that there is a sentient human being behind. Somebody's breathing back there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
somebody's breathing behind that rectangle. But it's very, very difficult to connect emotionally to a black rectangle.
yeah. 100%. You're so dead right. It's so hard to do that. And we
Yeah.
encourage people, have your cameras on, like be engaged, because my Lord, when we're doing a training and there's two faces and everything else is black squares, this is hard because you don't get to feed off the energy of the room. So you have to be really good to still develop that level of energy towards the conversation when no one's reacting.
So Mario, what's the advice? You're a newer person, or a person who is coming up, becoming more experienced, presenting yourself in these kinds of environments. What's the advice to a person who's coming into an online environment and is like trying to be a strong and effective communicator? How do you suggest that they act? And do you have any sort of ideas around how do you maintain your mindset? How do you maintain that strong, positive mental attitude?
So this is not, it's not easy. And I'm not going to sit here and say, guys, just keep doing it, because that's not necessarily going to be the answer. But what you have to do is, first of all, you have to get comfortable with this type of communicating. And so if that means you have to record yourself, which is the hardest thing to do, or you have to jump on an Instagram live or a Facebook live by yourself and deliver your message with awesome authenticity, because something I will tell you, if you're out there on your own, you're going to get a lot of people giving you positive feedback after that video is done. If you're on an Instagram live on your own and you're sharing your story and you're speaking your words, you're not seeing anyone. It's actually going to be easier for you, because when you're brand new and you're coming up and you see somebody's facial expression or their camera turned off, or you see Mike has left the Zoom, you're going to start having all this self-doubt. You're going to start having all this thing like, oh my God, no one likes me. This guy shut his camera off because he's laughing at me. Greg's not into it. He just left the room. And you're going to have all these voices in your head to tell you to stop talking. And so the best thing you could do now is get comfortable with the platform of speaking on an Instagram live, speaking on a Facebook live, just yourself. You don't see anyone. There's no one in the room. If you hate it, you don't have to post it, but put it out there, because when people jump into that chat, you're going to get people that are sending you hearts. When you post the video after, you're going to have people liking it, sharing it. Start there. Once you start practicing your craft and you start becoming a little bit more fluent with the wording, the story, the structure of everything over a little bit of time, then start gathering some people to have this talk. Interview other people. That's also a great way to get comfortable with this platform. Find somebody who's doing something that you want to be doing, or find someone that's doing something great that interests you, and interview them. Just get in the habit of speaking on a platform like this. Don't worry about what anyone says. Don't worry about the likes. Just build that up. And then eventually you're going to get more and more comfortable with it. And you're going to be able to deliver a talk in person or on camera the exact same way.
Yeah, I see that as building those muscles to be able to speak without apology.
Yeah.
Because especially Canadians, I mean, I think we are notorious for this, where we have these conversations with people, and and we go in to share something that we know about, or something that we're working with or working on, and we do this thing that I call we use an apology opener,
Ooh.
right? So we'll step into the conversation, and I'll be having conversation with you, Mario, and be like, well, I'm not as experienced in the industry as Mario, but, and then I'll say something, right? So I've already apologized for the fact that I'm not as great and glorious as Mario. And so what I've done before I've even started to really share my opinion or my perspective is I've already started to devalue
Yeah.
what I'm about to say, because
It's
I've
so true.
apologized off the top, you
So
know?
true. It
And so
lowers
what
your
we
vibration, your confidence.
Exactly. And so now you've already apologized, and now people are looking at you like, does this person even really know what they're talking about? Should I
Yeah.
even really be paying attention to what this person has to say? So
Oh,
now we've got to get them to
absolutely
be
right.
like, no, we can't speak without we got to speak without apology. We have
Yeah.
to be able to share our words. We don't have to apologize before we open our mouths. Every voice has value.
Yeah.
And the message that you have to share is important. Doesn't matter whatever it is. And whoever you're with in that context, people, you're in a conversation with people because they want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
And
This
that
is why
and that's all there is.
preparation is important, man. Like, you get somebody, because what happens is we might know a lot about a topic. You might have somebody on here that's marketing, they know it, but because they don't speak it, or because they assume there's so many better marketers out there, they're never going to speak with that power and that conviction. You got to block out that, because the people that you're speaking to know nothing about marketing. Stop speaking to the people that have been in marketing longer than you, and start speaking to the people that are in front of you that want to learn marketing from you. And I think that's what's going to help. Everyone has an audience. When I'm talking about finance, the biggest fear that stops my agents are like, "Oh my God, but I don't, what if they ask me a question I don't know?" The good thing is they don't know anything, or else they wouldn't be calling you. So you can say anything and it's new to them. They don't have an education. I go, "You didn't know anything when I met you. What makes you think they know something?" It's not like you're going to go through it and they're like, "Are you sure that's how Mario taught you how to say that?" They don't know who I am. So go in there, speak your truth. That's going to be the best financial presentation they ever heard, because it's the only presentation they've ever heard. And I think when you realize that the people that you're talking to and you want to give this information know nothing about the topic that you're sharing, you already know 90% more than the room. So instead of looking at it like, I don't know as much as Mario has been in the industry for so long, say, I know way more than the people I'm talking to right now. They need me. I have even a one nugget that is going to change their business today. And then you just grow and build off that confidence.
Yeah, that brings me to sort of thinking about one of the things that I talk about as part of the voice share method, which
Mhm.
is around the idea of the 4 levels of competence, right?
Yeah.
That everyone exists on these 4 levels. And so the base level, the level 1 is around abilities. People are able to do things, right? I am able to park a car, I am able to climb stairs, I am able to clap my hands. There are all kinds of basic abilities. And so we can get people to make huge lists about all of the different things that they are able to do. And then one level up from ability is a skill. So if you are able to do a thing, but you could do it for somebody else, that's when you're talking about a skill, right? So I could have the ability to write, but if there's somebody who's like, you know what, I really would like to be able to write this card and I want to write a little message. And I know you're pretty good at writing. Could you help me craft like this little message for my grandmother's 85th birthday? Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Okay. Here,
Yeah.
write this. Right. So now I've got a skill that I can use to help somebody else. I might be able to, change light bulbs in my house, but then there's the old lady across the street who needs to have the light bulb that's way up that she's got to climb a ladder to change. Can you come over, climb this ladder and change my light bulb? Well, for
Yeah.
sure. That's a skill you have because you
That's
can use it to help somebody else. Right. And then you go up to that 3rd level, and now you're talking about expertise, right? Because at the abilities level, we have lots and lots and lots of abilities,
Mhm.
fewer skills. But
Absolutely.
then when you right, but then when you're getting to a level of expertise, it's like it's something that you're able to do that you can do for somebody else for which people will pay you,
Yeah.
right? Now you're at a level of expertise, right? So people will pay me to write.
Yeah.
So now I can write an article and I can submit it somewhere, and somebody will take that and say, this is really good. I'm going to publish it and I'm going to pay you X dollars in order to publish your article.
Yeah.
Right. So now I'm at a level where I am developing expertise. And then there's that final level of competence that takes a lot of hard work and effort and energy to get to, where other experts who are good at what you do acknowledge you as being one of the best people at what they are expert at. And
100%.
that's when you've reached the level of mastery.
I love it. And I think people step into this world and they want to reach that level of mastery right off the bat. And so they skip all those steps and they compare themselves to that weight class. And you can't. You can't.
Right.
A lot of my guys are like, "Man, I wish I could speak like you speak." I'm like, "You didn't hear how I used to speak." It's easy to say that now. And I don't think a lot of people want to put in the work. And there's a great story around that. There's a golfer, um, I can't remember his name, but a really old school golfer, really like one of the top 10 golfers of in the world. And it's a true story. And he was having an off game, and everything was irritating. You know when you're just bothered, like you just don't want to hear anything. He ended up hitting this one ball, really difficult shot, and nailed it. And someone from the crowd was like, "Oh, Gary Player," that was his name. And somebody from the
Yeah.
crowd yelled, "Man, Gary, I wish I could hit a ball like you." And him being annoyed with his game that day, turned to the guy and said, "No, you don't. No, you don't. You wish you would hit a ball like me if it was easy. But you don't want to wake up at 6 a.m., hit 1,000 balls, go back to the clubhouse, tape up your hand because it's bleeding, go back out and hit 1,000 more. You want to hit like me because it looks good, but you don't want to do what I did to get to where I am to hit how I hit." And it
Right.
caused a big thing. It's an actual real event. And it was like the guy got really upset. It was like a whole thing. But even though the delivery of that message wasn't the best in that moment, he's absolutely right. People want things, they just don't want to work for it. You can go around anywhere and say, "Hey, who in this room wants to make 100 grand?" Anyone who's not made 100 grand is going to raise their hand. But you
That's
tell
right.
people, say, "Okay, now this is what it's going to take to make 100 grand. Keep your hand up if you're willing to do it." You're going to see a lot of those hands come down.
Right.
It's not easy. People want things without the struggle. You can't. The product is not the prize. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's the struggle that is what's going to develop that skill set so you can deliver your speech and deliver your talk with so much authenticity and power at that higher stage. But you got to struggle in the bid. You got to go through it. You just got to start.
So that brings me back again to the mindset thing, right? Because part of that process of, speaking without apology, of understanding what level of competence you're at is around how am I equipping myself to not fall victim to imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
right? Because that more than anything else is what's going to pull you out of your mindset, and you're not going to be able to communicate positively because you're thinking that you shouldn't even be there, especially for people who have less experience, as you're indicating, who are building their skills towards expertise and mastery. How do you help them to make sure that the mindset that you're bringing to the table is in the right place, so that you can do the kind of work that's necessary to get into that six-figure club, like you were saying just
Yeah.
now?
And the truth is, imposter syndrome, guys, the biggest fear is that we think we're going to be found out, that we're not, who we say we are, we think we are. And what I people have to understand is that people are gonna, if you share your story from the beginning, I mean the good, the bad, the ugly, the vulnerability, the struggle, and people watch you grow into your role, no one's gonna doubt you. But when you are working always behind the scenes, you don't share anything, you're not public with your struggle, you come out the gate now 2 years later and it's all like positivity and you're a master in your field, no one's gonna believe that. And you're not going to believe that because you're not comfortable expressing it. And so, what's really important to do is to utilize your social media to really build a strong following, is let them see you where you are now. If you're not at your best right now, let them see you post every day and give it your all. Let them hear you being honest about the struggles you're facing and the fears you're facing. Because sorry, what happens, a really big issue that happens in our world is that if you always act like your life is good, no one's going to ever try to help you because they think you don't need it. And now you're
Right.
really actually struggling, you want that help, but now you can't ask for that help because you've made it sound like your business and your life is perfect. So to avoid imposter syndrome is to just be real with where you are. If you read my social media, there's days that I post positivity, there's days I post vulnerability, there's days I post struggle, there's days I post success. It's what my life is like. It's not always happy, it's not always easy, but it's always real. And I
Right.
post that realness. I don't share anyone else's message. I share my message. It's raw, it's authentic, it's real, it's how I view the subject. And people are not going to argue with real. They're going to argue when you become a carbon copy of something that you're not. They're going to give you
Yeah.
a pushback when they don't believe your words because you don't believe your words.
Mhm.
That's where that starts to affect you.
Yeah, and then you see that kind of play off between folks trying to avoid falling into the trap of imposter syndrome, but then they fall into the trap of this toxic positivity that you end
which
up
is
seeing
worse.
online,
Because you
right?
think
Which
you
is
have to be
worse,
positive. You guys, you are I'm not positive. Even I'm not positive for a full day in my life. Never. It's impossible. And I don't, and it's tough because when people know who you are in real life, somebody told me this once, and I think it's one of the best, brilliant things ever. A lot of people ask me what my definition of success is. And what I look at is that there's a Chinese proverb that we all wear three masks. They're the masks we wear, and I'm going to modernize it because the proverbs do not include online. So I'm going to modernize it, but it says, who we are when we're online and how we express ourselves, who we are when we're around our close friends, and who we are when we're at home alone. And
right?
it's usually those are three different people. That's the masks we wear. How we really feel, what we post we are online, and then how we act in front of people. I
Right.
think success is when all three of those masks look the same. I think when you're comfortable in your own skin to be able to be who you are when you're alone, be content with that, be proud of that, and post that online. And then when people meet you, they're like, holy shit, you're exactly who you are online. That's the biggest compliment because there's some people in my network, I see them post online and I'm like, man, I know who you are. I
Right.
know none of what you're saying is true. Why are you making it sound
Right.
like you have it all together? And meanwhile, you don't. And once you lie about that, there's no going back. Now you have to live in that lie, and you're just going to get deeper and deeper and deeper, and it becomes such an unenjoyable experience. Success does not become fun anymore.
Yeah, that sounds soul sucking more than
Oh, it's
anything else.
exhausting.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's just leeching off that authentic energy that you were talking
Yes.
about right from the top. It's
Yeah.
like it's impossible to get the energized feeling from sharing your authenticity
Yeah.
if you're not sharing authentically.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just it's just not possible.
It's
And
true.
so Mario, because I think we're going to come towards kind of wrapping up here. Um, I wanted to say that what you share with folks about your personal struggle, about what you've gone through in order to get to the place that you're at in your life, the ways that you've had to learn yourself as much as you've ever learned anything about business or about speaking or about connecting with other people or making meaning for others. What is it that you think is kind of like a last sort of thing that you could leave people with, if they want to think a little bit more about how to keep their mindset in the right place so that they can communicate as effectively and authentically as possible?
One of the things that I wake up every day and I tell myself is that the world doesn't owe me anything.
Hmm.
And happiness, success, relationships, it's not reserved for the wanting, it's reserved for the willing. And if you're willing to go after anything you want in life, you're going to get there. It may not be overnight, it may not be as soon as you want it to be, but if you're consistent and you're driven and you want that for your life, whether it's a perfect partner, whether it's amazing health, whether it's a successful business, as long as you're willing to do what it takes to get there, you're going to get there. But if you're just going to sit back and want it, or feel like you're owed it, or like that your life is harder than someone else's, so there's someone that out there that owes you this or you deserve this, you're going to forever fall into that trap. You're never going to push past it. And if you've had, a tough life, or you've been dealt a tough hand, you have to understand that your story was given to you for a reason. And that
Hmm.
story is bigger than you. And so people ask me, don't you ever feel like too vulnerable or too open? Like, why do you share so much of your personal life? And I'm like, it was given to me to share. It wasn't given to me to hold in. Can you imagine if everyone held in their stories? There'd be no information in this world. There'd be no books, and I have both of yours. There'd be no stories. There'd be no message. There'd be no entertainment if everyone held in their stories. And so when you're given this hard road, you're also with it given an obligation to share that struggle that you went through. And you've made it through other people are needing you to push through that. They're needing you to pull them through that. And so what I want to leave people with here today is that, you need to learn how to monetize your mess. And you need to learn how to realize that what's happened to you is a blessing if you use it for positive, and you use it for good. It's not, oh, Greg's so lucky. I'm not lucky like that. Man, you don't know what Greg's gone through. You don't know what it took for Greg to get to where Greg's at. Stop comparing. Look yourself in the mirror. Forget the window, guys. The answers are not outside. The answers are inside. And when you look in the mirror and you're able to have a tough conversation with yourself and you're ready to face yourself, I have a personal trainer because I have a gym in my house. And this guy comes in, and the one thing he said to me, he goes, "Are you happy with your weight?" I go, "No, I want to get better in shape." And he said, "Okay, cool." He goes, "Why are you the way you are?" And I said, "Oh, I work a lot. I don't have enough time." I'm making all these excuses. He goes, "Go to the mirror, look yourself, and tell yourself that you're disgusted with how you feel. Go in that mirror and tell yourself what you did. Go apologize to yourself for neglecting your body and your health and your image." And what that made me do is take full responsibility for where I am. And when I took that
Right.
responsibility to own my mistakes, I now have the power to change it. But when you put that power in someone else's hand, you're forever a victim. When you put that power in someone else's, their actions, oh, I'm like this because that person, I don't know love because my parents didn't give me love. You will never have an out. You are putting yourself in a prison built by your own words. And so when you can look in the mirror and say, "You know what, you fat bastard, go out there and change what, because you caused this, because you didn't put this as a priority in your life. You didn't eat the right stuff. You made poor choices." And when I started saying that, as tough as it was, I started feeling empowered. I'm like, okay, I'm the one that chose bad food. So that means I'm the one that can choose good food. I'm the one that chose not to get
Right.
up every day. That means I'm the one that can choose to get up every day. But if someone else is the reason for me not getting up, I can't change that. I can't make that person change. And that's why people get
Right.
stuck in this endless cycle of misery and unhappiness.
Yeah, that's powerful, Mario. The idea that ultimately what we do and say for ourselves and the level of accountability we're willing to take for
Yeah.
ourselves will inform our attitude, it will inform our mindset, and ultimately inform what we communicate and how.
Mhm.
And it sort of comes back even to the motto for Voice Share Inc., which is to share the voice you own, you
Yep.
must first own the voice you share.
Oh, I love
And
that.
that is exactly the sentiment that you just expressed. So on behalf of Voice Share Inc., I gotta say, man, that's so great that that was the message you left with, because that is exactly what we're looking to do. So, folks, this is Mario Francella. Can you tell everybody, Mario, how they can find you? If they want
Yes.
to try to connect with you.
I'm on Instagram more than anything, guys. It's Mario J. Francella. The last name is Francella. You'll find me there. I just posted a story with me and Greg on here, so check me out, guys. Happy to answer any questions. Happy to just have open dialogue and keep this conversation going. That'd be awesome.
And so, folks, you've now seen the first installment of Voice Share Exclusive, where we take the opportunity to have an intimate conversation with people around what it is that they do in terms of inclusion, leadership, and effective communication. This is something that we're going to be doing on an ongoing basis. So, we're looking on a cycle of around every 6 weeks. We'll have somebody in, and you'll have an opportunity to join us in an exclusive setting where you'll be able to be a part of that particular conversation and then to be able to engage in that. So be looking for the next event that's coming up that we're going to do early in the new year. So, find us online, voiceshareinc.com. Join us on our group, our Shared Voices group on Facebook. So it's just Shared Voices at by VoiceShare. So come and join us there. And if you really want to get in touch, find out what are the different programs in terms of coaching, mentorship, consultation, and presentations that we can provide for you, shoot us an email at raiseyourvoice@voiceshareinc.com. And I'd be happy along with my colleagues in VoiceShare, to get back to you and to share with you whatever it is that we can do to help you to be stronger at that junction point between inclusion, leadership, and effective communication. I feel very privileged and proud to have had Mario here. I'm glad that you have had the opportunity to see this. Please send us feedback and let us know your impressions and how you experienced this particular workshop. Very happy for the people who are online and for those of you who are watching this replay. Thank you once again. Thank you, Mario.
See you, brother.
He's just nodding. There you go. All right. And we'll just, we're going to end right there. And again, join us online and remember that in order to share the voice you own, you must first own the voice you share. My name is Greg Frankson, founder and CEO of VoiceShare Inc. Have yourselves a wonderful evening. Thank you very much for being here and good night.
See you guys.